All right. Good morning, everyone. Um, Welcome to the August Argo CD and Rollouts community meeting. I'm your host, Jesse Suin. I'm a principal engineer at Intuit and a maintainer of the Argo project. And today we have two topics that we'll be discussing, along with any others that you um, can append to the agenda item. But we'll be talking about two labs projects that have been going on. One is Argo Cloud Ops, which lets you manage your infrastructure through a GitOps style of like Argo CD, and also a controller called the AppSource controller, which allows you to provide namespace level self-service for creating Argo CD applications. As a reminder, these meetings are being recorded and they will be uploaded to YouTube. With that, we'll get started with the first one, Argo Cloud Ops, and we have Brett Weaver to talk a little bit about that. Brett, do you want to give a little bit intro about yourself and about the project?
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. So my name is Brett Weaver. I'm an engineer at Intuit. I've worked here for about 18 years now, so a long history at Intuit across many different evolutions. This next one being moving to the cloud and how we're managing our resources there. And so today I'm here to talk to you about an experiment called Argo Cloud Ops. And let me share my screen. So I was coached. I came with a deck with 53 slides, and I was coached that might be too many. And so I reduced it. I'm just kidding. I didn't really have that many. I know what everyone thinks. Somebody who's worked at Intuit for 18 years, he's probably just going to bury us in slides. So we'll try not to do that. We'll get to a few quick few quick slides to ground everyone, and then a demo to talk about what we're doing. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So few quick slides as I talked about, just to get us grounded on what we're going to be displaying. So we've recently open sourced an experiment we're calling Argo Cloud Ops. And the goal of Argo Cloud Ops is to allow you to manage your cloud resources via GitOps using open source frameworks, Terraform, Cloud Development Kit, and others across multiple cloud providers, AWS and GCP, with a GitOps style interface. You can see the link below. And if you want to check out the code, I will definitely caveat with it's very early days and experimental, and a lot could change. So keep that in mind as you're going through it and looking at it. So we have Intuit, obviously, a very large Kubernetes deployment, but we also have other resources we need to manage. Those resources include things like AWS resources and other cloud resources that support those Kubernetes workloads. In many cases, those are managed outside of our Kubernetes infrastructure, everything from state to different other AWS resources. We have all of our non-container-based workloads, so everything from AWS managed services to Lambda to other things that are somewhat orthogonal to our container workloads. And then we have everyone's favorite, our legacy workloads. So like most large organizations, we have a fairly extensive deployment of EC2 and other styles of workloads that aren't going to be moving on to containers anytime in the short term. So what we wanted to do is take the learnings that we had from Argo CD and the benefits we had from the GitOps style process that we've developed to manage resources there, and see if we could apply that to managing those resources, which we have outside of that ecosystem today. So a few architectural principles. At Intuit, we want to solve for AWS first. AWS is our primary cloud, but we are not precluding other clouds. We do have footprints in many of the other major clouds. Solve for CDK and Terraform first, but don't preclude other frameworks. So personally, I have a belief, I've worked in this space for some time, is that there will never be a complete consolidation of every framework into one that rule them all. They're way too intimate and tied into your application. Once you've selected one, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone change anything significant from CDK to Terraform or CloudFormation or any other direction. I'd be interested to hear if someone had. So we want to make a system where we can create a environment where we could have a GitOps style process that could manage those resources using any of the frameworks that are, we want to meet developers where they are and what they're using. In addition, we also want to not preclude other frameworks, because this is another space that's ripe for evolution with new ones coming out constantly. GitOps and infrastructure as code. I think everyone here is very intimately familiar with that. We want to isolate our CI from our production environments. I think many people want to try and remove AWS access from people managing those resources, removing laptop deployments, and also getting credentials out of our CI/CD system. And then where possible, align to the same high-level patterns as Argo CD. So here is a quick high-level overview of what I'll be showing. And I promise only 2 more slides, and then I'll jump into some actual demos. So if you look at the components of this, there are 5 key components. On the left-hand side, there's an Argo Cloud App CLI. This is the primary user interface, and it's what actually communicates to the service, which is where most of the logic is run to actually execute the commands that are provided to it. And this includes commands that are very similar to the Argo CD sync and diff commands, which I'll show shortly. It calls a credential provider. Right now we're using Vault because we think it's probably the most universally transferable across the different clouds to assume credentials. Once that happens, it takes that and it actually kicks off an Argo workflow to run various images which manage those resources in the cloud, executing CDK, Terraform, or other infrastructure as code commands. And if you look at this box, the green components are those which we're considering to be part of the Argo Cloud Ops deployment. Vault kind of goes, it's internal component, which might be considered somewhat separate, but it's a configuration which is very specific to Argo Cloud Ops. And one more just quick slide to kind of ground what I'm going to show is Argo Cloud Ops is definitely built for enterprise support scale. We want to be able to support multiple projects, and those projects are essentially logical containers of access. Each one of those has targets, and those targets will be different regions, combination of regions and or providers and environments. You could have your US West 2 qual, your US East 1 prod would each be a specific target. And access is at the project level. So project 1, somebody managing resources that would not have access to project 2 and vice versa. Each one of those associated projects will have a GitOps repository that holds its configuration and is what is used to actually execute those infrastructure as code framework commands against it and manage those resources. So with that, I'm going to jump into a quick demo. I'm just going to click through a few links, and then I'm looking to kind of open this up more to introduce the concept and get feedback on how other people are doing this and learn from the community. And then, we can take it to whatever, wherever we have time to look at some different components. So I'm just going to pull up a ready-made pipeline that we have it into it. So here's our pipeline. The details aren't important, but you can see on the left-hand side, there's a build process that goes on. And like, probably most people here, we have a fairly extensive build process to eventually create the necessary components and to be deployed. And then what happens is once this build is completed, we get to what's called the Argo Cloud Ops steps. We have a diff and sync commands here. And I'm just going to go straight to this. Well, let's click on the diff for the fun of it. If we look at the diff here, what you see is in here, the actual command that gets run here is this Argo Cloud Ops diff command. And there's 3 key pieces to this. One is the S, which is the SHA. So this is actually the SHA we are going to reference to provide a diff against. And then the project name and the environment. So those are those 3 components that we talked about before. If we go to the actual repository, so this repository describes the infrastructure as code command to be run. And I apologize, I'm bouncing around a lot here. I'm probably I'm happy to clarify once I get through it because I know I'm throwing a lot at everyone. This actually creates the infrastructure as code command to be run. It says we are going to run CDK. It sets some environment variables to be run. It tells the arguments. And then it gives a handful of parameters. And these parameters are actually passed to an Argo workflow, which is used to orchestrate the actual execution of CDK via a Docker image. It has the project name, and this project name is just, in our case, it's just a numeric number we associate with each project. the target name and the type. In this case, it's a sync. And then the workflow template. So you can have different workflows to orchestrate different styles of deployments. I think for most people who have been in this industry a while know that there's never going to be one specific way to run Terraform, for example. Almost everyone who has set this up has a lot of stuff they do before they run Terraform or CDK to prepare the command to be run, and usually some stuff that happens afterwards. And we wanted to build a system that was accommodating to that. And so what that workflow looks like, and I'm actually going to jump over here, and this is actually in the Argo prod flags, Argo Cloud Ops repository. We actually have a single workflow in here, and this just describes the default command to be run, or the default workflow that is run if you just stand up Argo Cloud Ops from the README. So it takes specific parameters. These are provided by the service, and then it just executes a command. And this execute, in this case, it's basically just going to fire up a image which has the appropriate framework on it, and then it runs essentially this command, which will construct a command to execute either Terraform or CDK, and both are supported in the public repo example. Additional commands can actually be configured by, we've written the start of a templatization language, which allows for different commands to be added to this. So the assumption is most every command in this space will always have a sync and a diff. CDK will construct a command using Bootstrap and diff, and Terraform obviously has a Terraform and then a Terraform plan and apply, and other infrastructure as code frameworks will have other variables and commands that are run for those steps. But I think what we've kind of aligned to is that diff and sync are two commands which are going to be universal across all of those different frameworks. I'm going to bounce back into this pipeline now. And so if we go in here, we should see somewhere in here what we actually do is when this diff command is run, you'll see, oh, okay, we're going to run this diff command with that project name. And then what we're going to do is tail the logs on this. So if you look here, you do Argo Cloud Ops logs, you give it this ID, and this is an ID for the diff that's run. And then you'll see that it goes through here and it actually starts running all of the constructing the environment to run CDK in this case. So it gets some tokens from our provider, which is Vault. It downloads the CDK tarball to be run. And then finally it comes down to here and it actually runs, this diff command, which basically says, okay, this CDK, essentially it's just a dummy app I created called Delete Me. I just updated it from version 1 to version 2 of the app code. And that's going to result in the change of a Lambda function being changed from one asset to another. So then if I go on to here to the next phase, which is the actual sync phase. So that's the diff. Right now, there's no approval in between the two of them because this is just in our quality environment. And normally if this was in production, there'd be an approval phase. We take a look in here and we see now the sync command. So this looks very similar to the other one where there's a sync command. You give it the SHA to sync and the name and the target. And if I click into here, you'll see something that looks very similar. It sets up this same environment to run CDK. And instead of, in this case, doing a diff, it actually runs a CDK applier sync. And you'll see that that's actually doing this is the example, it's actually doing an update of that to change that function that the diff was displayed for. What those actual repos look like, if I click onto one of them here, this is the actual repo that has the code that's being applied in it. So like I said, we use CDK. We also have Terraformer support, and we're working on CloudFormation as we for the next release. And this just has your standard CDK files where there's a bin directory that actually runs a CDK to apply this and create this Lambda function. All of the communication goes from the service to GitHub. So if you look here, there's only a in this command, all you provide is the SHA, the name and the target. And what this does, this allows all configuration to be externalized from the actual build system where this is running. And the source of truth goes back to the GitHub account, very serious, the GitHub repository that's allowing for history and control to be managed there and how those commands are run. We are in the process, if you look right here, it's a little, we have an initial release out, we have it working and we're experimenting with it today. But I think what you'll see is there's a lot of internals that are being leaked and a lot of cleanup that can be done. What we're going to be doing over the next quarter is moving a lot of this configuration into the service. A lot of this shouldn't be necessarily externalized into the configuration command, as well as better documentation and cleaning up and improving the initial user experience. For those who take a look at it, you'll see today that it's definitely experimental quality. Well, what I'd like to do is, I only have about 10 minutes left, and I apologize that I'm probably rushing through and introducing a lot more concepts than I'm allowing time for, is get this community's feedback on the concept of using GitOps for this. And is this resonate with people? Do you have similar problems of trying to develop a GitOps style workflow to run your configuration management? If you've used Argo workflows or anything else in that aspect to try and solve for this. And so I'll pause there for a second just to take feedback, and I'm happy to go deep on any part. And ideally, I'd like to come back another time with more time and make sure I can, once we've continued to invest in this, and give an even deeper dive on all the concepts I've introduced today. So I'll pause there now. Any feedback or questions or thoughts?
What are people using for managing their cloud infrastructure? Are they using CDKs, CloudFormation, and Terraform? This is a question for the kind of people in the community.
Yeah, I'd love to hear how other people are managing these workloads that are not necessarily set up within, or in many cases out there outside of your actual Argo CD deployments.
Looks like someone in the chat says they use Terraform / Terra Grunt. And for a scenario like this, Terraform native makes more sense. Yeah. Thanks for that. Hey, but Brett, what is the workflow that not Argo workflow, but the process workflow that the user experience would be? Do you expect them to go play around with their CDKs, get that, tweak that until it's the way they like, commit that, and then expect like the automation to take over at that point? Like, what is the human workflow?
Yeah, and so what it looks like is it's very much a Git style experience. Let me actually just see if I can do a quick update and see if I can kick it off while we have a few minutes. So if I go into our CDK directory and I do, let's do cdk.json, and I can change, this is the various configuration to the cdk command. I'm just going to change the greeting on this Lambda function from hi, how are you doing, to hi, how are you doing today. Commit it, change function, change greeting, push it up, and then would let me. Okay, pushing it up, and what should happen is this should kick off a new workflow in our pipeline. And what that will actually look like is then that will go through and take that updated CDK command and actually run it. So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done here to move running CDK from the laptop with credentials on the laptop and configuration on the laptop to running CDK in the Argo CloudOps environment via Argo workflows with the configuration pulled from GitHub. So it doesn't look entirely different. I mean, at the end of the day, what we don't want to do is try and recreate CDK or Terraform, because I don't think we'll be successful building our own language to do this, but allow for a system that will can be used to execute those different configuration languages in a GitOps style fashion. And so what this is doing is kicking off, and what eventually this will do is this will get over to this Argo CloudOps different sync, which will now use that new updated shot to pull that configuration to be applied from GitHub. I don't know, did that answer your question?
I I think so, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we are building a system to execute CDK and Terraform across a consistent manner. And it shouldn't look any different than for those of you who are familiar with CDK or Terraform today to how they do it on their laptop or through a build environment or through Terraform Enterprise. Any other feedback or thoughts, or I'd also love to hear other people, tackling this at scale.
A little less noisy at home, so I can ask a question. So the one thing that I usually find that's not that great of a story is the delete side of it, right? So once the thing is no longer needed, and I don't think we've gone over that here yet. Is that something that's kind of in target for this particular tool?
It is, but we've purposely left it out right now because delete is, as you know, like it's a very difficult thing, A, to do safely, and B, to do successfully with any of these tools. I mean, in most cases I've found you of any kind of complex application, you have to do delete, then clean up a bunch of stuff, then delete. So absolutely, it is part of the story, but as most people have probably done, as you've said, we've kicked that can down the road for the next release.
Fair. Thank you.
So you guys are referring to the problem, like I have time A, I committed a bunch of CDK stuff that deployed, I don't know, like a Lambda. But then in my Git repo, at time B, I deleted it, decided it was no longer, and then so now that Lambda needs to be pruned, I guess.
I was actually thinking of the use case where it's you can you're actually done with this environment. You just want to delete it entirely.
Oh,
yeah, and that's the one that was what I was responding to, and maybe whoever asked it can clarify. But this absolutely will allow you to roll forwards and backwards using different Git SHAs. Provided that whatever those changes are can be rolled forwards or backwards. I mean, there are depending on how you use Terraform or CDK, there's your ability to roll forwards and roll backwards are only as good as what you've planned for in that. What I mean by that is if you've say deleted a database or made some changes that are not, you can't necessarily just roll back to state if you've destroyed it as part of your roll forwards. So, but it absolutely allows you to roll your SHA forwards and backwards based on the configuration in GitHub.
So can you clarify in CDKs or Terraform, if you have something and then you remove that something in subsequent, then they actually take care of the pruning?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. What's difficult in many cases is if you actually want to say have a complex application you've deployed in CDK or Terraform and then say do a Terraform destroy, I think is the word. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on how much changes has gone externally to that over the course of time that those resources have been managed via it. And then there's also the challenge of that being a very a one-way door that you walk through that's very hard to walk back from. So that's one of the big reasons why we've kind of held off on it is we've acknowledged that for the first release of this, that's going to be a manual operation. And so, yeah, you see this is working its way through and now it's running this sync and it has, if we look here, it has the new SHA, which was generated as part of our build process. There's also a plan to support just branch names as well. And this is now running, it's generating the policy. And so one thing we didn't talk about on this is we want to make sure that part of the reason we use Vault is to allow for assuming minimally privileged roles. And we actually set the policy at time of role assumption so that CDK or Terraform, whatever is running, only has access to the resources that it needs to manage. And this is actually now running, where are we at here? It's actually downloading the configuration to apply and it's creating the CloudFormation change set. For those of you who are unfamiliar with CDK, at the end of the day, CDK allows you to use higher order programming languages to generate CloudFormation and then apply that, use that to apply these changes to an environment. and we have an update in progress. And so this is actually making a change to this stack based on that change I made to the greeting, and that should change the Lambda function shortly. And so this definitely solves a problem that, depending on where you're at in your and the type of approach you have is running these frameworks at scale through a consistent GitOps process. I think it's probably the shortest way I could summarize it. Any other thoughts or feedback? Or I think I'm right at about time. And I'm sorry, I probably tried to push 60 minutes of content into 25 minutes. So I'm sorry for the bounce around on everyone.
How can people reach you to find out more after, like for those watching the recording of this? Are you on the CNCF Slack?
Oh yes, I am in the Argo Slack. Ping me there, and I will.
CNCF Slack. The Argo Slack is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm in the CNCF as well. Correct, and I'll confirm I am there as well. I'll make sure I am, and I'll put my contact information. Should I just put it in the community document? Yes. And I'd encourage everyone to start the repo. This is again very much a first introduction of these concepts. Like I said, we view this as experimental right now to see. We're learning ourselves to see how this resonates and if this helps us solve our problems. And I'd love to come back in a few months and talk a bit more about it.
All right. If there are no questions right now for Brett, we'll move on to the AppSource controller, which is a project that our intern Marco has been working on the last couple of months. And Marco, are you? Is he here? I think we might have lost him.
Nope. Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, everyone. My name's Marco. I'm a software engineering intern with the Argo team here at Intuit. And like Jesse mentioned, today I want to talk about a new controller that I've been working on over the summer called the AppSource controller. So let me pull up my own slide deck and talk about the controller a little bit more. Can everyone see my presentation okay?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. So like I said, today I want to talk about the AppSource custom resource and controller, which is made to allow users to create Argo CD applications from their own restricted namespaces. So we noticed that using Argo CD within clusters or in teams that sort of delegate the creation of their Argo CD applications to namespaces restricted and that are not from the same namespace where the Argo CD instance was installed was somewhat of a slow situation in a sense where most of these applications were being created by a DevOps or admin team that did have access to the same namespace wherever the Argo CD instance was installed. And so in order to respond to this situation, we proposed a solution, which was to create the AppSource controller and custom resource. And so the way it works is an admin team or a DevOps team with access to the Argo CD instance and namespace can create a config map that contains a bunch of Argo CD project specifications that can control and manage the sort of resources and things that developers can do with their Argo CD applications, the resources they can use and things of that sort. Now the dev team from within their own restricted namespace, they can create an AppSource instance that triggers a reconciliation request for the AppSource controller to verify whether the developers have followed the naming convention specified by a regex pattern within that config map that the admin or DevOps team created. And we can match the specific project that a developer team might be wanting to create an application for by using the namespace where the AppSource instance was created. If this naming convention was followed, then we can go ahead and create an application for this dev team, which was made from within their own restricted namespace. Let's go a little bit into what a typical AppSource config map looks like. So over here on the left, you can see that the controller uses the Argo CD API to make all of these requests, whether it's for creating Argo CD applications, verifying that the application exists already or not. So a typical config map will include the Argo CD API address and a series of client options. So within the Argo CD.client options field, you can include any of the API client options that are available to you from the Argo CD command line interface. And so you can type those all out in this one string and the controller will parse those out for you. The most important part of the config map is the project profiles field, which will just contain an array of Argo CD project specifications. And if you'll notice there on the left, highlighted is the name pattern that will be used to be matched against whatever namespace developers are using from within their own cluster or restricted namespace to create Argo CD applications. So then on the right is what a typical AppSource instance looks like. And so you'll notice included here for the sake of demonstration is the namespace that this AppSource is being installed in. And this AppSource manifest uses the My Project US West namespace, which back on the left matches to this My Project profile that uses the name pattern highlighted there. We've also included finalizers that can work out how we want to delete Argo CD applications if you ever decide to delete your AppSource instance. And the AppSource instance will also contain the necessary information on where your Argo CD application is being hosted and the path to that application. So this is kind of just going over again what I mentioned about the AppSource config map. Highlighted there is the client options field and the project profiles. So a question that we thought about when developing this controller is how will admins communicate what project profiles developers have access to? And so it's very convenient that Kubernetes already has its own role-based access control system. So we can give developers read permissions to this config map so that they can see what things can be done within their projects, but not write access. So as to maintain the security of how applications are automatically being created. So now I wanted to take a brief moment just to quickly demonstrate what it's like installing the AppSource controller, what it's like creating and deleting an Argo CD application from within your own restricted namespace. So I'm going to move over to, gonna reshare. Can everybody see an Argo CD UI on the left and my terminal on the right?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. So on the left is the Argo CD UI. That's really just there for demonstration. We want to show you what's going to be happening on the Argo CD side when we use the AppSource controller. And on the right here in the middle pane, we've already done a little bit of the setup for the sake of demonstration. So we've already created the config map that the AppSource controller uses. Made sure to display that down here, but we're going to be using the same config map and AppSource manifest that I showed in a couple earlier slides. We've also created a secret that contains the Argo CD API token for the account that's going to be making all of these requests to create applications. And lastly, I also just made sure to display the AppSource manifest that we'll be using, but it's the same one that we showed earlier. So installing the controller is a fairly easy process. It's very similar to how we install Argo CD actually. So we can use a single install manifest that will create the deployment and any necessary roles and service accounts for the controller. Great. So with that, we've created the control and everything it needs to operate. Now, if I were an admin or a DevOps team in charge of the Argo CD instance, I could pull up the logs for my deployment So follow Argo CD. Ooh, misspelled QCTL. Let me use a quick, so here we go. So if I were an admin and I have access to the Argo CD namespace, I could just pull up the logs for my deployment and see this information on how it's performing and anything that it's done. But assuming that I am a developer working from my own restricted namespace, when I create an application, which is just done by applying the AppSource manifest. So let's create a sample AppSource instance. We can see on the left side that through the Argo CD UI an Argo CD application was created. And if I want more information about whether my application was successfully created, because I don't have access to the Argo CD namespace, I can just go ahead and check out the AppSource Status sub-resource. So let me just pull that up. And I am operating from the My Project US West 2 namespace. I can see down here that within my conditions, I can see that the Argo CD application was successfully created at this specific time. And we could also be informed of any errors that might have occurred. And so this is typically how developers can see the state of their Argo CD application from within their own namespace. So now deleting the Argo CD, so the AppSource instance is fairly simple. And in this manifest, we included a finalizer that will handle deleting the Argo CD application instance and its resources from wherever that application is being hosted. So let's go ahead and delete the AppSource instance. We can see on the left that on the Argo CD side, the application was deleted, and that was because we included this finalizer. Okay, I'm gonna hop back now to the slides just to sort of go over some of the things that we talked about. And actually, I don't think I have to reshare. I can just go right back to my slides. So specifically, like I mentioned, we have the finalizers that handles how we want to take care of our Argo CD applications if we ever choose to delete the AppSource instance. We also support the cascade deletion that is available to Argo CD users already. You can do that by just appending /cascade to this finalizer. We also saw the AppSource Status sub-resource that just contains information about the state of your Argo CD application. So with this now, we can allow Argo CD users that utilize Argo CD in such a case where most applications are being created by users that don't have access to the Argo CD instance. We can allow them now to automatically create Argo CD applications from within their own namespace and even from within their own clusters. And this is because we're using the Argo CD API to communicate with whatever Argo CD instance you're running. You can have developers that operate from within their own clusters and can self-serve themselves Argo CD applications. So thank you so much for your time. I'll stop now to take some questions. If you'd like to reach out to me, there's my email. There is also my GitHub handle, and I can be found on the CNCF Slack under that Slack handle. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Any questions for Marco, or about the project, what this is trying to achieve, or any questions? Yeah. So this was in response to providing just a simpler way for self-servicing application creation. So you can imagine. So without this controller, the expectation is that an admin creates projects for like each namespace of their developer teams, and then they sandbox like what can be done for them. But it assumes that you want to also give the developers Argo CD API server access and be able to, SSO log into that and then create applications through the Argo CD interface. And so for those who actually want a more namespace centric approach to applications and self-service, like you don't even have to expose your users or give them access to the Argo CD API because now they create these namespace level CRDs, which ultimately create applications, and then the admins are able to control like what they can do by pre-configuring these projects and using that config map to map their app sources to the pre-configured projects. And so that's the type of use case that this is trying to address.
And I think this is just for future, because I know this is being uploaded. If you'd like to see more information about the project and where it's currently hosted, the AppSource project is already a part of the Argo Proj Labs organization. And so it can be found just by looking up Argo Proj Labs /AppSource. And so I'll make sure to drop a link to that for those who might be interested in checking that out today.
All right. Thank you, Marco.
Yep.
All right. So we've reached the end of our regularly scheduled projects or topics, and I forgot to check if there are any after topics submitted by the community, but let me check really quick. Does anyone have any topics they want to bring up right now? Okay, it looks like that was the end of the agenda. So looks like that'll conclude this meeting for today. We have the workflow community meeting that happens the third Wednesday every month. So another 2 weeks. And aside from that, we'll see you either at our weekly contributors meetings that happens every Thursday, or the next community meeting that is on a monthly basis. I see one chat. Okay, that's Marco. Put the link to the AppSource controller. All right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye.